I want to talk about alcohol, drugs, and driving a car. Everyone is familiar with the statute that makes it a crime to operate a motor vehicle under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or a combination of both. The statute specifically says it is unlawful for a person to drive a motor vehicle within this state while under the influence of alcohol to the extent that the person's faculties to drive a motor vehicle are materially and appreciably impaired. And that impaired by alcohol, drugs, or both. If you get stopped by an officer for under suspicion of driving a car under the influence of drugs or alcohol, he's going to come up to the car and ask you questions. Where you been? Where you going? How much have you had anything to drink? How much have you had to drink? Where have you been drinking? If he smells marijuana smoke coming out of the car, or if he smells alcohol, or both, which often happens, he's going to tell you to get out of the car, and he's going to ask you to perform certain field sobriety tests, which include walking heel to toe in a straight line, standing on one leg for some period of time, and the finger to nose, which is close your eyes and touch your finger to your nose, like that. You don't have to take those field sobriety tests. There's a statute that says you have to, but there are no consequences written into the statute. However, there is a consequence, which is your refusal to take those tests can be used at the trial when you're tried for DUI. So I can't give legal advice to theoretical situations. I don't know what situation you're going to be in if you get stopped, whether you've had something to drink, whether you should take the test or not. I would not do well on the heel to toe or the standing on one leg. I got a bad knee. And so I would flunk those. There's a test called the nystagmus horizontal test, which is officer holds his finger up in front of your nose and says, follow my finger without turning your head, just use your eyes. And at a certain angle, which I believe is 45 degrees rather, people who have been consuming alcohol, their eyes will start twitching as they follow it out. They can't move, they're not supposed to move their head. If you take the tests, the officer's observations, all of which will be on videotape, are going to be admitted in evidence against you. If you don't take the tests, then the fact that you refuse to take them is going to be admitted in evidence against you. I can't give legal advice about what you should do, except don't drink, use drugs, and drive a car. I just want you to be aware of what you're going to encounter if you get stopped for driving under the influence. You have to make your own decisions. Unfortunately, people who have been consuming alcohol or drugs are often the worst judges about what they should do. A lot of people refuse to take the breathalyzer test, and there are consequences to that, which is that you're going to lose your license for 6 months if you refuse to take a breathalyzer test. Now, you only take a breathalyzer test once the officer concludes that you're driving under the influence and formally charges you, not formally, but charges you with driving under the influence. They'll take you to the closest police facility, and you'll have to take a breathalyzer test, which measures the amount of alcohol in your blood. And as I said, if you refuse to take that's a pretty serious consequence of suspension of your license for 6 months. Now, there are ways for you to get a temporary license while during that suspension period, a restricted license that allows you to go to work and to school. But the consequences of being found guilty of driving under influence are severe. If you're not involved in an accident and didn't hurt anybody, you're probably not going to go to jail if it's a first offense, but your insurance rates are going to go up dramatically, and as I said, you're going to lose your license. If you get convicted, you're going to lose your license for up to 6 months, and you'll have that on your record. And if a second offense occurs within 10 years of the first offense, then you are guilty of driving under the influence. If you get found guilty, you'll be driving under the influence second offense, which has more severe penalties, including a longer suspension period. So the best thing to do is don't drink and drive, or don't use drugs and drive. but people are going to do that. I can't give legal advice about whether you should take the breathalyzer test or whether you should take the field sobriety test. I don't give legal advice based on, unless I have a concrete situation that I'm dealing with. And I'm not out at the scene when people get arrested for driving under the influence. So I just want you to understand what you're going to be dealing with when you are stopped by an officer. So stay safe.